Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.
Welcome to another episode of the Smart City Podcast. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Adam Rashid, Head of Smart Cities and Digital Infrastructure at JBG Smith, as well as Vardahn Chaudhry, Vice President of Smart Cities and Digital Infrastructure at JBG Smith. Gentlemen, thank you for coming today. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having us, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Let me ask both of you, and feel free to chime in any order. What brought each of you to this smart city space?
Yeah, this is Adam. I'll get us started here. I think my path to smart cities is a bit kind of untraditional. Most of my career was in real estate, finance. Prior to joining JBG Smith, I spent about 6 years doing real estate, private equity, traditional investing, and joined JBG Smith about 3.5 years ago, where I was fortunate enough to co-found our smart cities practice here. And honestly, I had a fortunate meeting with an executive that was in the telecommunications space that was really raving about 5G and how it was really going to kind of change the built environment and you know, the world from his perspective. Then when I got to JBG, realized that most of our holdings are in a place called National Landing, which we'll talk a lot about. And because of our scale of ownership and control, we really had the ability to roll out digital infrastructure and 5G much faster and more seamlessly than kind of many other places. And so, brought this thesis to the firm that we could be one of the first to kind of have true 5G at scale and roll out robust digital infrastructure to really drive our core business of owning, operating, and building commercial real estate. And was fortunate enough to kind of get the backing of our senior team here. And 3.5 years later, we're off to the races, building the U.S.'s first 5G smart city at scale.
Well, that's fascinating. Vardahn, what brought you to the smart city space?
Sure. So, Jim, my path actually started back at JBG about 2 years ago. So I joined Adam and team at JBG back just before the pandemic started. And prior to that, I was working at a consulting firm at Accenture for about a decade. And the majority of that time, I was focused on this, amorphous, I'd say at times, concept of smart cities. So we started on that journey back in 2011, 2012, when the term was in its infancy, and I was fortunate enough to have that have an opportunity as a consultant to travel the world and work with cities, municipalities, and then eventually mixed use developers and owner operators to try to crack the nut of what we meant with smart cities and how to actually change the way urban environments were built from the ground up. And was fortunate enough to join Adam and the team in the JBG journey as a consultant. And one thing led to the next. Adam said, "Hey, why don't you jump over the fence?" And I was thrilled to do that. So the reason I did is because what we have here in National Landing is, as you'll hear from Adam, frankly, the first true smart city, certainly in the country, but arguably the world. So we're really excited to build what we have here.
Wow, that's great. For those of our listeners who might not know who JBG Smith is, perhaps let's start with a little background about the company and then their role in the smart city ecosystem.
Yeah. So JBG Smith, we are a publicly traded real estate investment trust. We're based here in the Washington, D.C. metro area, exclusively focused on building mixed-use urban development here in the Washington, D.C. metro. Our current form as JBG Smith is really the product of a merger of two companies. So the JBG company's long history in Washington, D.C. of urban placemaking and real estate private equity investing, where we've physically transformed many emerging neighborhoods from the ballpark to Shaw to 14th Street. And then in 2017, we merged with Vornado out of New York City, who had a large holdings in the Washington, D.C. area, and we spun out a new company called JBG Smith. And as a part of that spin merge, as we call it, came with it this area that we call National Landing, which is where the majority of our company's value is held. And it's really kind of three historic submarkets, Pentagon City, Crystal City, Potomac Yard, kind of all in the Arlington and Alexandria areas of Virginia. So directly across the river from Washington, D.C. and adjacent to the Pentagon. And we have the, fortunate place to have won the Amazon HQ2 pursuit. And so we're actually building Amazon's second headquarters for them. And then we're also building a new innovation campus for Virginia Tech, which is $1 billion campus focused on STEM innovation. And in the middle of those two phenomenal anchors is where most of our holdings are, where we own or control about 70% of the existing and developable real estate, which again gives us tremendous size and control in this submarket, which is roughly the size of Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and with an office density the size of downtown Austin, Texas today. So that's where we play, and that's really where we are kind of developing, to Vardhan's point, this smart city, which is want to be the first in the nation. I don't know, Vardhan, you want to talk a little bit about kind of what our role is kind of in the smart city space in this place?
Well, before we even go there, just to outline that development area, there is some transportation is a big part of smart cities. I believe there are some transit lines, and of course, I believe National Airport is right in the proximity as well, isn't it?
Yep, that's right. And we sort of think of this place as being anchored by three phenomenal anchors and having incredible access to transportation, Jim, like you said. And so those three anchors for us, we sort of liken this place to be anchored by, on the one hand, the Pentagon. National Landing sits directly adjacent on the south side of the Pentagon, anchored by Amazon HQ2 and Virginia Tech's $1 billion innovation campus. And then on the eastern side of the neighborhood, as you just mentioned, Jim, we're tucked in directly next to Reagan. And in fact, among several billions of dollars, upwards of $6 billion of physical infrastructure improvements includes a pedestrian bridge, where over time we're going to actually have a bridge that will connect our neighborhood to National Landing. So you'll have walkability from an urban place in National Landing to the airport, which will be the first and only of its kind in the country, and actually second only to Tokyo as far as a true urban airport goes.
Oh, that's great. I never liked taking that cab ride over to the hotel across the highway.
Yeah, that's right.
So, we've got a perspective of the geographical confines of National Landing, but what really are the smart city goals? And who are all the stakeholders? What are you attempting to achieve there?
Yeah. So as kind of real estate owners and operators, we have kind of a fundamental maxim that real estate houses the economy. And kind of our core business at JBG is, as I said, owning and operating and building real estate. And so we started to study and say, what is what do we think is going to be the greatest driver of kind of economic growth over the next in the coming decades, and really aligned on kind of the growth of Industry 4.0. What's happening in IoT, what's happening in artificial intelligence, what's happening in advanced high capacity compute and quantum computing, robotics, things of that nature. And we quickly realized that those type of innovations really need purpose-built digital infrastructure. And equally as important, if we want to attract the companies that are going to build the future, they don't have that at scale. They don't have the infrastructure that's required to build kind of these new technologies at scale. And so we try to look at smart city from a little bit of a different lens, not to say what's going to be the next whiz bang use case. In fact, when we started this, we said no parlor tricks. We said what can we do kind of as our role here, kind of as orchestrator and curator of this city. What can we do to give innovators all the tools that they need to build the future, to build kind of the next generation of IoT, to build kind of truly deep neural nets for AI, to have all the compute that's necessary to have kind of autonomy, whether it be autonomous bots or cars. And we really centered it in around this digital infrastructure platform that left to its own devices, the market just wouldn't produce.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point that Adam just made there. Many smart cities, as we look around the globe, have, by and large, let's say, approached smart cities with the use cases or technology, solutions first. And you see the usual suspects of smart lighting solutions, parking, smart metering on water, power, and a whole host of other solutions, even in the transportation space. But what we don't see, I think, on the domestic or global stage, is any sort of smart city at scale. And, to Adam's point, we are not in the position to crystal ball or forecast, what technology solutions are the best for any urban environment. But we do know that what we have here is an incredible density of control at scale. And we have a mini city here. It's a microcosm of any urban place, given its mix of uses, availability of transit, the fact that we span 2 municipalities in Arlington County and the city of Alexandria. We have a live fire urban environment. And what we're building is we think the first of its kind infrastructure platform to basically serve as the foundation and sort of, as we like to say, the easy button for innovators to come to this neighborhood, test, build, test, and scale new products and services that then will define smart cities of the future.
Well, that is fascinating because in the early days of smart cities, you're absolutely correct that the low-hanging fruit was thought to be LED streetlight conversions or backhaul for the metering network, but it really wasn't foundational. And here at ARC, we actually adopt a perspective of the Smart Cities Council, where there's 9 vertical application areas that public agencies tend to support. But more importantly, there's 7 cross-cutting technologies, and the foundational ones are the ones that I'm seeing in your data infrastructure platform. Predominantly, they are edge computing, the actual connectivity, and then all your back office business intelligence. So you really need that before you start deciding what IoT sensors are you putting out there, or what applications should I dream up. You really do need that foundational technology before you do much else.
Yeah, no, we couldn't agree more. I mean, look, we take it from the perspective, taking a lot of stuff that we at JBG as a company have done from a physical placemaking perspective and bringing them to the digital world. We like to liken ourselves to digital placemakers, where in the physical world we are, we may curate a streetscape and pick the best restaurateurs, the best hoteliers, the right mix of apartments and office space. but we're not kind of in the kitchen kind of creating that meal. And we wanted to try to take a similar perspective from a digital perspective, where we wanted to give innovators, to Vardhan's point, kind of the easy button and everything that they need to become and be the best innovators that they can. And so, similar to the way that ARC looks at it, we said, look, these things are foundational. You need these foundational technologies, and that's why we really, hone in on the idea that this is true infrastructure. This is what the future will be built upon to deliver kind of the next generation of use case. And we don't know what that use case is. We don't really want to prescribe what that use case is. We want National Landing to become more of a rainforest where people have everything that they need, and that innovation becomes organic. And some use case, the way that Uber changed our lives, is developed here and will ultimately change our lives in the in this kind of new Industry 4.0, fourth industrial revolution. We want to be that place that gives innovators the tools to be as creative as possible. And that's
agreed. Let's for the technologists in the audience, let's walk through slowly some of the technologies that are embedded in your digital infrastructure platform. So let's talk about fiber. What does fiber do for this community?
Sure. So Jim, maybe if I could, I'll just take a quick step back and.
Oh, go ahead.
Would it be helpful for us to maybe bounce through the component parts of our stack, at a higher level, and then we can drill in?
Before we drill down, that's a great place to go. Go ahead.
So Adam, do you maybe want to walk through the overall stack, and then I can help drill into the details?
Yeah, for sure. So we have kind of 5 to 6 components, if you will, of the platform, and it really starts at the fiber layer. So we are laying redundant and ubiquitous dark fiber, north, south, east, west, across every street, connecting to every piece of street furniture, every one of our buildings, even every one of our tenant suites, with fiber, with dark fiber, kind of across the entirety of geography. All of those fibers terminate in 2 centrally located edge data centers, and they really become kind of the hub in this hub and spoke topology. They become places for carrier points of presence. They also become kind of the house for the next generation of compute, whether that is Mac mobile edge compute, or we're working with other partners to bring high capacity supercompute to the submarket, working with partners to bring cloud-based quantum computing to the market. They become these on-ramps for the cloud. So they really become kind of the hub, or the brains, if you will, kind of the platform. Above those 2 wireline assets, it allows for really wireless to flourish and kind of flourish in new ways. First is kind of our public outdoor 5G. And so we made an announcement this past summer to bring on AT&T as a foundational partner to deliver ubiquitous outdoor 5G at the millimeter wave in most areas, and in sub-6 ubiquitously kind of throughout National Landing, which again will make us kind of this first 5G smart city at scale, where we'll have kind of true 5G kind of across this entirety of National Landing. We also have a commitment to indoor 5G, recognizing that just the physics of 5G doesn't allow for it to permeate kind of surfaces as well. And so we're investing in kind of neutral host infrastructure to make sure that we have the requisite infrastructure to make sure that 5G is kind of throughout all of our in-building settings. We're also working to make sure that kind of Wi-Fi at the Wi-Fi 6E and eventually 7 is kind of ubiquitous. We say kind of from sofa to sidewalk, and we'll have kind of a managed Wi-Fi solution across the entirety of the geography. And then finally, about 2 summers ago, we purchased from the FCC in its auction CBRS spectrum. So we are the largest owner of private access licenses, CBRS in Arlington, and the second largest holder in the city of Alexandria, the two municipalities where National Landing is. And so we have our own private cellular spectrum. And we bought the spectrum not to become a telecom, but again, in this idea that we want to give innovators the easy button. And so you can come to us, you can come to National Landing and have everything that you need to develop the next generation of use case, kind of with a one-stop shop that is JBG Smith to help you from kind of the fiber through the actual airwaves. And again, this is what we believe is necessary for true innovation in Industry 4.0.
Wow, this is a substantial undertaking. Where are you in this development process? Is this in a conceptual phase, or have you laid fiber? Have you built buildings?
So we're absolutely in full build and sort of construction and implementation mode right now, which is really exciting for us, Jim. We really took the better part of 2020 for planning and strategy. The better part of 2021, bringing on foundational partners and closing on really innovative transactions and structuring deals. And now in 2022, we are full steam ahead, putting shovels in the ground and implementing with the ambitious goal of having our first deployments of 5G online later this year, which will obviously necessitate our fiber connections as well as runs of that fiber to be connected and have the NLEX, or at the edge data centers, as Adam described, be online. Starting at the fiber layer, one thing that is exciting and I think ought to be a blueprint for other neighborhoods of our ilk is a really innovative public-private partnership that we struck with Arlington County. Arlington County is one of the two municipalities that National Landing straddles. And that county had a lot of foresight. Yes, 5 to 7 years ago, they laid a county-wide municipal fiber network. And part of that network was for the express purpose of innovation and economic development. When the county learned of our plans and vice versa of the JBG network all across National Landing, we submitted an unsolicited proposal to take control of existing assets under the ground that the county was not able to put to its intended use. And so we actually have a third of our overall network already in the ground as it was acquired in this transaction. And from there, we're building the remainder of the 2/3 over time as we build our buildings and kind of densify the rest of the neighborhood. So really exciting. We think that the term public-private partnership gets thrown around quite often, but here in National Landing with Arlington County and JBG, we feel like we've got something very commercial and tangible that achieves shared goals, and that has really kickstarted our overall platform. And as mentioned, we're in the throes of implementation on the other parts of the stack. We're in design and engineering for our data centers, and that'll unlock the power of outdoor 5G. We're making plans for our indoor 5G in-building investments that Adam alluded to, and we're also running on implementing our Wi-Fi program to allow for connectivity from the sofa to the sidewalk, including with operators who will help deliver that service and sort of be the port of call for customers so they have issues. And then last but not least, we already own the spectrum, and we're hopeful to be announcing some innovative partnerships about how we can actually use that spectrum for different types of networks, including potentially O-RAN networks here in National Landing, given that those airwaves and those PALs are ready to be utilized.
Well, that's great. There's an awful lot of stakeholders in any project like this, and many of them bring different needs. What have been the challenges that what have been some of the most significant challenges you faced in developing this project?
I think it's really to your point. There's always a lot of stakeholders in kind of any large scale development project. But many of the things that we're doing are kind of new and innovative. And so it's really, coalescing around kind of the goal of trying to create something differentiated here, and hope and having people kind of entities stretch maybe beyond what they've done in the past. I think, one of the things that we do well as a group, I think, is kind of consensus build, and try to find structures that work for everybody. And I know that sounds really generic, but if you take kind of like our AT&T transaction, for example, it's the first time they've done a transaction like this where they've worked with a private developer to utilize our infrastructure, utilize our power, utilize our infrastructure from our fiber to our power to our actual mounting locations, to deploy their 5G network. And this is something that they haven't done before. We had to do kind of a lot of kind of education, a lot of kind of consensus building together with our counterparts over there to recognize that this is, quite frankly, a more seamless way to roll out infrastructure, namely 5G. But we've been really heartened and gotten a lot of kind of accolades. Senator Mark Warner was quoted in our press release, noting that this could be looked at as kind of a blueprint for the way that digital infrastructure and 5G, namely, are rolled out. But it's really trying to find structures that allow for everybody to win and do things faster, more seamlessly, more efficiently. I don't know, Vardahn, you've been.
So as a commercial real estate organization, what systems did you put in place to verify and validate all of these technology suppliers that will come to be your long-term partners here?
So, I think for us, Jim, there are a couple of different lenses through which we make those decisions and really approach those discussions. I think at the highest of levels, given that we are organized as a REIT, I think our intentions are very clear, and we're very open about this. At the end of the day, this digital infrastructure platform, we think, is going to have a rising tide effect for the entire neighborhood, for the municipalities, and really all the stakeholders. But we also think, quite frankly, as Adam said, fundamentally, we think real estate houses the economy, and this digital infrastructure platform presents a set of brand new amenities that are really, the first of their kind. And so we believe very strongly that if we're successful in deploying this digital infrastructure platform and attracting the users and effectively tenants of ours that will be the innovators in this ecosystem, that'll be good for our core business. And so I think that as a North Star drives a lot of our partnerships and decision making. Make sure that when we work with foundational partners of ours, that our interests are aligned in achieving that outcome of establishing the infrastructure in a way that is robust and is purpose built for the end tenants and the end innovators. And then beyond that, when it comes to more sort of technical decisions, we really think very critically about who has the best technology. How do we make sure we're not falling into a situation that will result in vendor lock? Supply chains being what they are in today's world, we're very critical in thinking through which suppliers and technology providers can be where we need them to be at the right time. So all those sort of traditional decision making processes are in place as we kind of build the stack from the ground up.
Great. Let me ask, are there use cases that, I recognize it's early for this development, but are there use cases that you're starting to hear about that seem to resonate and seem to be sort of the leading candidates to reside on this infrastructure platform? Is it medical imaging that requires that bandwidth, or are there other hotspots that you're starting to see?
Yeah, there's a few. I think we're getting a lot of interest now kind of from AR, VR, kind of just broadly XR companies. I think the ability to kind of have the amount of kind of bandwidth and low latency that we're going to be able to offer at scale is something that's really interesting to folks, both from an entertainment perspective where we're talking to different players, and then also from a kind of an enterprise and kind of, if you think about the future of office perspective. So XR is a place where we're starting to see folks really lean into the platform and the infrastructure be a true differentiator. We're also seeing some interest kind of from autonomy broadly, whether that's robotic delivery, or we recently stood up in partnership with Virginia Tech's Transportation Institute. So their Transportation Institute is kind of a top 3 transportation institute in the world. We recently stood up a smart mobility coalition where we hosted about 90 companies to come in and think about kind of the future of smart mobility and autonomous vehicles. Trying to break that down from a North Star goal of hopefully making National Landing a true CBDX environment, but breaking it down into initial projects from smart intersection to kind of the data that's required to share across vehicle and infrastructure and the likes. So autonomy broadly, and then I guess you'd probably consider it another infrastructure layer, but we're starting to see a lot of traction for both for I guess different parts of compute, mobile edge compute, high capacity supercompute to kind of unlock the true power of AI, utilizing real time data from kind of the IoT sensors throughout the market, and then also quantum computing.
Yeah, I think most people tend to grab onto the high bandwidth of 5G and not focus as much on the low latency. I come from a transportation background, and this does seem to be a tremendous test bed for cellular to connected vehicle C2VX technology, as well as the somewhat different scenario of true autonomous vehicles. I could see an awful lot of interest in that area.
Absolutely. We feel the same way, and that's where we are heartened to really dive into the details of how an implementation might work for a connected vehicle platform with smart intersections, and really getting into the, call it, nuts and bolts of how true autonomy, L4 autonomy would work potentially over 5G networks, and having a partner like Virginia Tech, who's a partner of ours in the neighborhood writ large on real estate, but also in bringing their transportation acumen to the table to basically be sort of the driver of some of these projects at a testbed level, bringing the OEMs and technology providers to the table to really solve in a real world live fire environment how a project might come to life using infrastructure that we're putting in place, including 5G networks. I think you're absolutely right, Jim. The opportunity seems to be ripe for these autonomous solutions to ride on 5G. But I think the only way we're going to actually work through the kinks, so to speak, and then have a scalable, extensible solution is, by being able to try it in a live fire environment. That's sort of how we have envisioned National Landing from the start.
No, I think it is a nice evolution. There are a number of connected vehicle test beds out there around the country, rural ones, city ones, highway applications, but none are this large, nor do they have the varied, or do they have this matrix of all of these different scenarios of high-speed roads, of tall buildings where GPS can't locate your vehicle, and all of these complexities. They tend to be focused on one particular application, any one of them. What else does JBG Smith do? Are there other smart city applications where you're rolling out a similar platform?
Right now, we're just focused on National Landing. I think, you mentioned it with some of the complexity that is National Landing. We truly do believe, again, that this is a microcosm for nearly any urban environment in the world, from multimodal transit to kind of extensive office and residential open spaces, major airport. And so our goal right now is to really get it right. To something that Vardahn said, our goal for this year is to really be online with much of the infrastructure, and start to showcase again what this infrastructure can open up, and then in the future, think about kind of how this could be extensible to other places. But for now, really focusing on trying to stick to our knitting, get this place right, and hopefully truly be a beacon on the hill for what a smart city can be if built from the infrastructure up.
Superb. I know you're focused on getting this right in the next 12 months, 24 months, but you must have done some blue sky thinking about what does the future look like. Are there some perspectives you can offer in that domain?
I'll start, and then Vardahn and I love to riff on this. Look, I think that eventually, for us to truly unlock the power of Industry 4.0, scale developers, municipalities, we'll have to start thinking about digital infrastructure, truly in a converged way. We think that we're onto something in the way that we're thinking about it, and it has the ability to truly transform kind of the built environment. And so we think that for a time, there's going to be kind of different places that look similar to what we're trying to build in National Landing, but it will take kind of leaders, whether they be private sector leaders or kind of municipal leaders, to embrace kind of we think that this kind of 5G revolution is going to be the sharing economy for kind of enterprise. And so to embrace this kind of new way of doing business, where we're looking for different structures that allow for all of us to kind of grow atop of the infrastructure. And again, that could look like a similar kind of scale development like this, or that could look like at a city, bringing on a partner to think through what the future of their digital infrastructure looks like. But we truly believe that kind of in order to unlock Industry 4.0, you start with the infrastructure and you let the innovators do what they do best atop of it.
Agree with everything Adam said. I think when we do have some time to blue sky about the future, what we realized very quickly, frankly, even in this process, we're realizing that, like we've said, this infrastructure platform we think is the first of its kind, but we'd be surprised if it's the last of its kind. And so I think increasingly it's likely that other communities will feature this infrastructure. But we're really putting our elbow grease into this and bootstrapping this platform in-house at the moment. And we're sort of what we found early on is, left to its own devices, the market of infrastructure providers, sort of the usual suspects, don't build networks, converge networks across the stack, from the wires under the ground to the airwaves and spectrum, in a converged way at neighborhood scale. And so, I think the future is bright, and more of these converged networks will have to crop up. But we're excited to be cutting our teeth on this project and building it first here in National Landing.
Yeah, gentlemen, I have a question I probably could have asked earlier. We've focused on the amenity function, as a real estate operator, the amenities for your tenants. But how about impacts to the buildings that you in fact own and or manage, in terms of sustainability, energy usage, air quality, security systems. What does this platform do for your own internal processes in that regard?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jim. I think the fundamental benefits are going to be the same. And, we talk about being in the easy button for innovators. We're already having discussions internally. We have a head of sustainability, Kim Pexton, with whom we're very tied in with. And what we're working on is how to make sure that our buildings feature the best technology for the specific building, different technologies, as you might imagine, for residential properties versus commercial, and how this infrastructure that we're building can be useful for our own operations and our own sustainability efforts. I think generally speaking, what you'll find is that the network layer in the stack is in many cases the lowest common denominator. It's if it's not there, it ends up being a very expensive cost item. If it is there, it may not be there with the exact right sort of options that are best for any number of installations of whether it's IoT devices or integration between systems. You mentioned security and access control. So we fundamentally believe that this infrastructure will help us optimize our own operations. And we're currently, in parallel to actually building the infrastructure, working closely with our teams to really nail down what we can do across our mix of uses. One of the key projects we're working on first is security and access control, and finding a way to use our infrastructure to our advantage to enable seamless access to different buildings to specific people who might, access a commercial building on one afternoon and later that afternoon be able to access specific spaces in a residential property. And believe it or not, that's complicated and very operationally intensive. And so we're working on how we can solve that in many cases using our infrastructure.
Well, Adam and Vardahn, this has been a great discussion. We're just about out of time. Do you have any last comments for our audience today?
I would just say we're super excited about the work that we're doing. We really think that we're in a really fortunate position to have kind of these phenomenal anchors in a phenomenal location, and we're trying to do our best to lean in to being a small part of ushering in the future, ushering in kind of true scale adoption of Industry 4.0, and we are inviting all collaborators, be it at the infrastructure level, at the technology level, at the policy level, to really think about National Landing as a true microcosm, and to think about National Landing as a place where you can build local and scale global.
That's great. So, gentlemen, for if we do have collaborators, which I'm sure we will on our listening to this podcast, how do they contact both of you?
We'd be really happy if folks could actually come and visit us and see what we're building here at National Landing. The easiest way to get in touch with us is to check out the National Landing website, nl.jbgsmith.com. And also, Jim, we're happy to give you our contact info. You could reach us, Adam and myself, by email, and we'd be happy to get in touch.
Great. So once again, our guests today have been Adam Rashid, head of Smart Cities and Digital Infrastructure, and Vardahn Chaudhry, Vice President of Smart Cities and Digital Infrastructure at JBG Smith. Thank you again, gentlemen, for really a very enlightening discussion today. And we look forward to seeing our listeners on another edition of the Smart City Podcast very soon. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Talk soon, guys.
Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities Podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.